We're out in California on the Recruiting Roadshow, brought to you by Greenhouse, where I'm speaking with some of the world's best recruiting operations professionals and recruiting leaders about the modern problems that are keeping them up at night. Vanessa Raath is one of those recruiting voices who is so well respected in this industry. She's an expert when it comes to sourcing and recruiting operations and how the two tie together in modern recruitment. What I appreciate about this conversation with Vanessa is her unwavering commitment to uplifting the industry. So please enjoy.
Well, my name's Vanessa Raath. I was always known as the Global Talent Sourcing Trainer, and that's when I opened my business 7 years ago. That's what it was. And then 3 years ago, when generative AI raised its ugly head, I was like, I've got to jump onto this wave. First of all, I was super interested, but I realized if I just stayed as a talent sourcing trainer, I wouldn't actually have a business. So now I'm known as the AI literacy coach, the AI strategist, the AI in recruitment consultant. That's kind of from a business sense, but I'd like to be known as the person who gives back, the person who shares. That's more important to me than any title that I'm ever going to have.
Vanessa, you have given back. You have been that trainer. You have been a beacon in this industry, somebody that people look to for guidance, for tactical training, for inspiration. You spend a lot of time on the road. You have a global perspective because you do work from your home base in South Africa. You go to Europe, you come here to the States. What does bringing that global perspective mean to you, particularly as recruiting operations evolves with AI?
For me, it is actually lovely. It gives me such a unique perspective. And I love that because everyone's doing things slightly differently. But what I do see is, especially think of me leaving third world South Africa last week, as I refer to us, and people say, wow, you're going to the US. It's absolutely amazing. And I think the perception is that you guys are way ahead. You have all of the answers. You're doing things right. It's like surprised that I was coming to a conference where there would be people because a lot of people in Africa think that AI agents are doing all of the recruitment here because that's how advanced you are. But the reality is, when I got here and I ran a 2-hour workshop on Monday afternoon, I found that the people on the ground were at exactly the same level as other countries all over the world when it came to their AI adoption. And that's the really interesting thing here. I think we have this perception that, and it's not just the US, it often happens in Europe too, that you guys are streaks ahead than the rest of the world where it doesn't always translate. And that for me is like super interesting. It's a perception of just because where you live, you're so much more advanced.
This idea of training is so critical. So much of the learnings that we possess in the HR and recruiting world is handed down through different generations. We're in one of the largest generationally diverse workforces. I'm curious for that next generation to come along. We spoke in the pre-show. There's not a lot of young folks in their earlier career coming to conferences, learning. The moment right now that we're seeing between humanity and AI, it's critical to bring that younger, earlier career generation along with us. How are you thinking about training the younger generations?
So again, let's talk about that and a few misconceptions because, often I'll meet with companies all over the world and they'll say, oh, we've got Susan in the team or John and they're young, they're millennial, they get all of this stuff. They're going to pick up sourcing really quickly. But I don't think it's actually an age thing. I know that these people have grown up with more exposure to technology, but it doesn't mean like they're embracing generative AI way quicker than anyone else. So I think it's important. There should be more here. There really and truly should be because the OGs are here and I don't know how much longer the OGs are going to be here and they've been fantastic mentors to me and yourself. I just don't think that companies are investing enough in those younger team members. I met one lady here from New York who's brought her intern, she's fresh out of college, and brought her along to show her how to work a room and network. And she was absolutely lovely and just sapping it all up. But there's not enough of that happening. I'm not seeing enough youthful enthusiasm in the room here.
What is one tactical takeaway that you have for the younger generation to learn to be a better recruiter, whether it's a sourcer, a rec ops professional? How do you think about one thing they can do better in their job?
And this is a classic example for me, in South Africa, because in South Africa, talent sourcing was never a thing. So when I got into talent sourcing 15 years ago, The one thing that I did was I invested in my own learning. And I think that that's what I would really recommend for younger recruiters and talent sources is that no one's going to do it for you. No one's going to hand it to you on a plate. You go and make best friends with YouTube. I refer to it as the university of YouTube. Go and upskill, go and learn. The onus is on you. Stop sitting back and laughing, waiting for a handout.
I'm on a mission to upskill and uplift the recruiting industry one conversation at a time. And I'm excited about the use cases of AI at various points in the candidate funnel. You're a
Yeah.
sourcer, I'm a sourcer. How do you think AI is delivering better signal through noise at the top of funnel?
Oh, that's really an interesting comment because, in my introduction, I said I was a global talent sourcing trainer. And if I look back at 2025, if I was just a talent sourcing trainer, it would have been a very hungry year. I've got 2 boys at home. They like to eat 3 meals a day. There wasn't a lot of work coming in from talent sourcing training. Yet here we sit with the beginning of February, and I've already trained 2 teams on doing talent sourcing. So let's talk about what's happening. So generative AI, it came into play, just over 3 years ago. People have been using it for sourcing. But I think people are now starting to realize how much it hallucinates and how they actually still need to know the old school. So you can go to ChatGPT, you can ask it to write Boolean, but is the syntax correct? Is it great? Do you know where to improve it, where to tweak it, where to make changes to get different results? And I almost feel like we're actually going back to basics at the moment. People are asking for the talent sourcing training because they need to figure out that whatever the generative AI is producing, is it correct? And how do they actually try and, repair it or make it work better? So for me, I think it's a wonderful tool, but it's not something we can rely on 100%. And I do believe that sources still need to remember their sourcing skills and why they went into sourcing in the first place, because those skills are never going to die. So it's definitely a combination that is needed. And at the moment, people are putting too much emphasis on the AI side of it, not the old school sourcing skills.
And what you just shared is the Dunning-Kruger effect, where it's important for humans to have a stopgap on the knowledge and output of
Yes,
an LLM so that we are able to regulate if that information is correct or not.
100%.
And when you look at the source of public information where many of these LLMs are being trained against, we need to
Yeah.
ensure there's accuracy. And that trust, in my opinion, should be practitioner led, should be third party led,
Yep.
not necessarily trusting the AI labs that every single bit of information that the LLM is being trained against is accurate.
Exactly. Which worries me about the younger generation and how they just think, oh, we don't need to learn this because, we have AI. I think people who've been in the game, I mean, we spoke pre-show, like you've done 10 years. I've got what feels like about 108. Um, but we know what we should be getting from, these LLMs and our interactions with generative AI. And it actually puts us in a much stronger position. So it's almost like the company shouldn't just assume because their staff are younger, they're going to grasp it a lot quicker. They might be better at writing prompts, but they're not as good at screening the prompts. And that really is an interesting analysis that I don't think people are thinking about enough.
And when it comes to sourcing, I'm excited about the future of recruiting operations teams
Yes.
evolving
Yeah.
to include more sourcing into the workflow. When I think about the role of recruiting operations professionals looking at data and storytelling and looking at processes for how a candidate maps through the journey, we're going to see a lot of the traditional top of funnel metrics shift. We're going to see more accuracy. We're going to see fewer candidates in those screening rounds,
Yeah.
despite higher volume of increased applications. And I think recruiting operations teams are going to have to be a little bit more strategic in how they think about their sourcing motion and what their posture looks around great sourcing.
Yeah.
Previously, sourcing has kind of lived in this little
Yeah.
corner where you've got a couple of
Geeks.
exactly. You've got a couple of internet sleuths that can just
Yes.
go out and find
Yes.
anyone. I think as we look at automation and scaling systems in a discerning way, we need to look at the considerations of what does great sourcing look like and how do rec ops teams embrace it more
Yeah.
versus letting it live in a silo. Is that something you're seeing?
I'm not seeing it enough. I mean, it's a fantastic analogy. I really agree with it. And RecOps for me is just such an exciting space. And I'm actually saying to a lot of people that are sitting there saying, what's my next? Is there a future for me as a talent sourcer? I'm pushing a lot of talent sources into going to explore rec ops because they've already got that almost technical. We spoke about them being geeky, put them in the corner, feed them flat food and do those kind of things. So they have that natural affinity to being curious around tech. So I think rec ops is an amazing platform for them. And if they go in with the sourcing knowledge to begin with, they're going to be so well positioned because we saw yesterday, my AI tried and tested tools list, which, people are looking at and helping them with their AI tools, the biggest category on their sourcing tools. But if you can go and type in a couple of requirements into a sourcing tool and get the results, it's the experienced sourcer that can actually say, oh, yes, this one's great, or that one isn't so great. So from a RecOps perspective is that if you are looking at different processes, you're looking at different workflows, you're looking at different types of automation, you have to be really discerning when you're testing all of these tools. And I think that that's where a sourcer, because they have so many touch points in a recruitment process, are going to be really well positioned.
And when I think about what great sourcers do as they grow in their career,
Yeah.
they're doing
Well, they don't want to manage people.
they're doing so much research.
Exactly.
They want to stay tactical. They want to do the market mapping. They want to work
Yes.
closely with compensation analysis teams. They want to work closely with the candidates and understand those signals.
Yeah.
As recruiting evolves to a product and we're designing recruiting workflows as product, I believe that information from the sourcers needs to go into rec requirements
Absolutely.
as we raise that rec. So when we're
Yeah.
talking with our internal stakeholders and bringing that job description and search to market, we have those specs already included in how we're thinking about that search.
Yeah.
And then we think about integrating candidates into that experience. That information can live in postmortems and debriefs after
Yeah.
we close. But I think that intelligence is the future of how sourcing can be aligned with RecOps, and RecOps can embrace
Yeah.
some of that previously ignored talent and skill that just makes hires happen.
100%. Absolutely. I mean, a lot of that you spoke about there is talent intelligence. That's also going hand in hand with RecOps. For me, the most difficult part of all of that you mentioned, and I mean, it has to happen, is, and this is what I do a lot on the AI consulting side, is getting TA teams and recruiters to figure out what their current processes are. Like, what are your current processes? Have you got them documented? Where can we now start seeing AI having an impact? And it's actually what seems like such a simple question just takes forever to. I mean, I do it obviously consultation, giving surveys, doing feedback sessions, but that is the crux of this, is that you've got to know how things are currently working to know where you can improve on them. And not a lot of people actually have a grasp on how they are currently recruiting. It's really interesting.
And when we think about getting a grasp and having the intelligence to know what is working, what is not working
Yeah.
in our recruiting process, of course, it comes down to metrics.
Mm.
We talk a lot about metrics in the recruiting industry. Things are changing.
Thank goodness.
What are some of those metrics that you're hanging your hat on today?
I think that metrics are so subjective to organizations. And I mean, for me, an overarching metric is how happy are the hiring managers within an organization? How much are your roles staying open for? I mean, we always talk about time to hire. And I think all of those numbers should be decreasing because we should be having a lot more synergy between the human and the AI. So AI speeding up processes. But the one metric that no one is measuring at the moment, we're all using AI. Whether it's like clandestine, someone sitting at their desk with their phone using OpenAI ChatGPT because they can't use it on their work computer. They're using it and they're getting a lot better at using it and it's speeding things up. And ultimately, they're saving a lot of time. Now, the metric that no one is measuring is how much time are they saving? And more importantly, what are people doing with that time? So for me, the metrics actually need to be, how is the AI helping recruiters to be more human? How much time are they spending with hiring managers, clients, with candidates? Are they building community? Are they building a brand? And that, for me, no one is really taking that into account at the moment. But it's something that is so vital because we're all saving time somewhere at the moment. But that metric is the one that I'm the most worried about because the other ones of how many people did you speak to today or this week or how many new clients did you find, a lot of those are ridiculous. I really have no time for metrics.
I love that in the time that is freed up, the opportunity cost is human connection. How do you think talent teams are balancing human judgment and automation?
Some better than others. I mean, we could see the same question with like AI vendors. Some AI vendors are coming up with tools that are trying to take the human completely out of the equation. Others are keeping a human in the loop. And again, it comes down to people's personal preferences. I'm working with a massive client out of India at the moment. They've got 3,500 recruiters, and they are adamant not to get rid of any of their staff. Yet they're going on an AI journey with me, trying to determine what would be, the right tools for them. And I think it all comes down to is how much do you care about things like your EVP? The candidate experience. What are you recruiting for? Are you doing bulk hires of graduates? Are you doing multiple call center staff? Or are you looking for really unique rocket scientists to, pilot the next space shuttle? So it's a very difficult question to ask. But for me, the biggest fear is that we lose sight of that human judgment. My presentation yesterday was all about what is the one thing at the moment that humans have over AI and they really need to cultivate, and that is trust. And AI isn't instilling trust in a lot of people. And for me, that's the most important thing. And trust can be interpreted in different ways. So people can determine, where does human judgment start encroaching on the trust factor?
Have you seen teams implement AI and automation that deliver worse outcomes?
Not long term. I see a lot of people that implement AI and automation and they implement it badly. Because for me, the biggest part of AI and automation, another thing no one really talks about, is change management. People aren't really that excited about, having AI thrust upon them all of a sudden, They're still quite nervous about it. Maybe the first 3 months of the adoption and trying to get things right, yes, I can see that it then does have an impact and it's not great. I've also seen companies have an impact where it hasn't had a good impact, but it's been the wrong tool. Something that we're seeing at the moment is that our competitors are using this AI tool, so we obviously need that AI tool, and that's what we're going to use, but it's not actually the right user case. I haven't seen anyone that's using it that's long term. And I think the nice thing about the AI space that there's enough startups that you only sign month to month. And if it's not working, a lot of them are also giving out free demos. I've been talking about that this morning. You can actually just axe them and move on. So it's not like a certain blue machine where you have to sign up for 2 or 3 years to get a license. Not long term a bad effect. I think everyone that I've seen adopting AI and automation has been positive, but maybe not immediately.
A lot of the processes that we have in hiring were designed for half the volume of applicants, but 2 times the amount of headcount that we're hiring in. How do you think systems are evolving?
They're definitely working more with volume. So when I look at a lot of the AI solutions and softwares out there, they are targeting volume recruitment. It's not your niche specialist, AI engineers. I'm not saying that they don't do that, but I think they're answering that problem much better in the volume space. And I think that it's evolving, as quickly as AI and automation's evolving, the way we recruit is evolving. And again, coming down to each individual company, what is their geographical location? What is their niche industry? They have to evolve in order to suit their needs. There is just no one size fits all in this industry. Where before we could maybe get away with like one size fits all industries. Now that's not even a reality anymore.
Where do you see TA teams breaking first right now?
I see a lot of TA people breaking and tapping out of the industry, which is really sad. I get contacted a lot, and the natural path is to go into the coaching, the career coaching, interview training, and for me that's really sad. I've been backwards and forwards, and as you said, traveling around the world speaking at conferences, and when I see people who I've shared stages with that are sitting around unemployed at the moment and very disillusioned with the industry, it just amazes me. So my concern is what's breaking is the people. And there are some phenomenal people within this industry. And these are time-old things. I've been running my own business for 7 years. I've been in the game for, again, what feels about 100 years, but it's always been candid feedback. It's been ghosting. We had someone in the opening keynote yesterday saying that their daughter, grad, had applied to 380 roles and hadn't heard back from one company. That's disgusting. Like, where's the humanity in that? And that's been something that's been, broken for a long time. So I think before we need to focus too much on the AI and automation, we've actually got to fix the people and being human again.
I love that you're focused on the people, the humanity, the connection, the training, the passing along of knowledge, case studies. What advice do you have for a recruiter in this day and age?
So one thing, and I think it's just me taking my personality online, is that, we've never met before. Let's be honest here, but we've spoken enough on the social platforms. I see what you do. That is the reason why I'm sitting here in San Diego today. It all boils down to brand. So my advice at the moment, and this has been a module in my training since I started my own business, is grow your brand, have a personal brand, have a digital presence, have an online footprint, whatever you want to call it. And I always kind of did the module, and it was always the one that the recruiters would be like, "Oh yeah, no, that sounds very nice, Vanessa. Yeah, okay, yeah, no, we'll try, we'll do our best." And they've never taken it and run with it. Yet you show them a Boolean search string and an X-ray, and they're away. They're doing it. But there's never been enough emphasis on the recruiter actually putting themselves out there, getting the trust, getting that kudos, asking for recommendations, building a network, getting a community behind you. And I think that for me is going to be the one thing, the one piece of advice that I would want to leave is it's never too late. Start building a brand, because the AI is going to be that good that it is sourcing the candidates, it's doing the reach out. But savvy individuals, when they go and do a search for, John, for the recruiter in company X, they're going to realize that it's an AI. People don't trust AI. But if you're a recruiter that is posting regularly, you're creating a name for yourself in your niche, they can see your recommendations, you're going to get the response. And that is going to be the crux of recruiting going forward.
You talked a little bit about trust. How do you think having a strong personal brand as a recruiter allows candidates to trust them when they're getting bombarded in their inbox by recruiter outreaches, fake job scams? We talk a lot about candidates not trusting if somebody is
Mm.
real when they're calling them or sending them
Yeah.
an email. So, where do you think candidate trust comes into play?
For me, it's everything, isn't it? It is absolutely everything, because if they've heard your name in the industry, so let's say we've got a recruiter, they've been in supply chain industry and on the East Coast forever, you will have heard of them. Someone would have placed someone at your company. They would have been recommended to you. So when that message hits a very crowded inbox, they know, oh, okay, Vanessa Raath. Yeah, I know her. I've heard about her. She's real. And I find that as I got further into my recruiting career, and I still, dabble a bit, is that I always get responses. Like, reply rates aren't a problem for me, because I have that online brand. I've been noisy. I've had an opinion. I've given a lot back. And when people look at my LinkedIn profile, it's active. But I think that kind of behavior ensures that I have that trust before people even decide whether they're going to work with me. And because of that trust, they decide to work with me, which is great.
You're talking about the craft of recruiting, the care for our process, the stewardship of this industry. Let's flip that. What are you seeing with candidate fraud, identity verification? I talk to recruiters that have thousands of applicants, and now they're being asked along their huge remit of responsibilities
Yeah,
to
another one.
prove if a candidate is a real human
I
being.
know. Yeah. No, it's hectic, and it's happening. And I mean, and I watch all of those awful videos on TikTok and YouTube of, an avatar, and everyone's like, get them to put their hand in front of their face, because I can't do that. And yes, it's going to happen. And I think that that's human nature. I just wish that humans would use all of these skills that they have for good, as opposed to let's try and be nefarious and, duck and dive and do things incorrectly. And last thing, and I actually met with a company out of the US recently towards the end of last year, and they have come up with a tool, an AI tool, that serious candidates who are putting themselves out there on the market, you subscribe, you sign up, you put up your documents, and you get the verification that you need. And those are the candidates that are going to be pushed, I think to the front, as there's more companies that realize, actually, we have a complete tsunami of applications here. What can we use? And anyone who's using those tools of let's deal with verified candidates first are going to be the winners. And it's an unfortunate thing, because it's not really that exciting and innovative. You're just trying to, block people that are being a little bit crafty. I mean, there was that guy who was working like 13 jobs or something, making an absolute fortune. And one of the companies was Boeing. I mean, he was a solution architect for Boeing. So it's a necessity that's had to come into play. But I think AI is going to speak to that too. But the candidates are going to have to step up to verify themselves. And that's easier said than done if you are out there and you're looking for a job and you're sitting on the couch, as opposed to someone that you're trying to headhunt.
When we think about implementing some of these tools and technologies, what are important considerations for talent leaders and questions they need to ask of the vendors as they think about evolving their tech stack?
So first of all, please make it an inclusive process. I'm so tired of hearing that, well, the manager or the director has bought this software, now we have to use it, and it doesn't actually suit the user case of the recruiters on the ground. Because it's such a new space, I really think you should be pushing for demos. You don't want to just go and buy something that you've never tried out. And I think that we are still very far away from AI laws, legislation, risk and compliance, and they're coming. 2 companies actually reached out to me in January that were on my list. And they said, Vanessa, you're going to have to remove us from the list because either LinkedIn's changed something or there's some new, one was the EU AI Act that's come into play. They're not actually in a position where they are legal. It's got like a traffic light rating and they're in the red category. I think that's the big ones is because we don't know what's coming down the line. Obviously, the data protection is lagging a little bit behind, but it's important to ask those questions before you sign up to something that you're going to have to do a lot of change management, integrate all of your other tech systems, and really go down a route to find out 6 months later, actually the tool you're using isn't even legal.
When we talk about the opportunity cost of AI freeing up more bandwidth for recruiters to focus on the candidate, to focus on the human element, what manual process do you predict won't exist a year from now?
Well, I can tell you what doesn't exist for me anymore, and that's writing emails. And I think that's a hugely manual process for a lot of recruiters. Communication is a big one. And I'm not saying that, I just leave Copilot to go and answer all of my emails because, when you spend so long building up your brand, I don't trust any AI to answer my emails. But even this morning, I just activate the microphone, I tell it what I want to say in the email, it writes the email, and then off I go and I send it. And for me, that's just a complete game changer. I have ADHD. I get very bored writing emails. I don't say as much as I maybe would like to because I get bored. And I think anything that is manual and labor intensive, like I can't believe the amount of duplication that I see, put it in on the CRM, then put it on this Excel spreadsheet and then go and write it on a board. Like I really hope that kind of behavior is going to be the first to go.
And that's where I think the future of recruiting operations teams can really make a strong impact is breaking down the data, looking where is there a bottleneck,
Yes.
and then going to market and trying to find a
100%.
solution for that specific data point.
Yeah.
And we need the story that surrounds that. Right now, we don't have any
Yeah.
set it and forget it point solutions,
Yeah.
end-to-end agentic AI experience. There are ways to bolt a bunch of tools on together.
Which is also not ideal.
Precisely. Why do you think it's not ideal to have AI in every stage of the candidate journey?
Well, first of all, I think that, just because AI can do something, should it do something? And I mean, that's my take on it, is that it's not like, recruiters, are we going to be replaced? It's like what parts of our roles are replaceable? For me, as AI is going to be able to do a lot. AI is going to be able to do the full recruitment process end to end. But is the candidate going to have a good experience? Is it going to be are the candidates that are coming in, are you going to have higher retention rates or not? We don't know that. There is no case study. So my thinking is that let it do the administrative tasks, because have you ever met a recruiter that went into recruitment because they love admin? So free up their time to be more human, build communities, build networks, and let the AI do the admin. And I think that that's what we need to realize. But that admin does look different for different organizations. It's figuring that out. And then once you can fix that. And again, I think for me, one of the biggest disappointments in AI has actually been AI agents, because they were a year and a half, 2 years ago, they were going to come and change everything. And everything was going to be done by an agent. Do you have any agents running? That in the background on your systems, or is anyone answering your emails now?
They are not.
Exactly. So, and that's what we're finding is that I get 2 case scenarios whenever I train a new team. And it's like, as soon as I show them custom GPTs, because most people are paying for OpenAI, they're like, I want to build one to do this or do that. And I'm like, remember, we're recruiters. Don't try and get overly technical. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. There's actually a really affordable tool that can do that for you. It's set up already. They'll update it when everything updates in the background and APIs break and systems don't talk to each other. It's not always up to you to now become a really techie individual. I think that that's one of the most important aspects is don't just think like you're invincible now because of generative AI. Still make sure you're looking at what tech products are available.
I think to hire well is to understand a specific candidate's motivations for the outcomes of a role. We talk a lot about scaling great hiring systems.
Yeah.
And I always go back to, is this even scalable? When we really think about it from a first principles mindset, our goal as recruiters is to get to a handshake yes.
Yes.
There are a variety of ways to get there.
Yeah.
And it often relies on understanding the motivations and a decision that's made by the candidate. From a technology perspective, we're seeing an abundance of tools, market cap in the applicant tracking system. The applicant tracking system market cap is expected to grow by 2 to 2.5x in the next 5 years. That's
Yeah.
very exciting because that means there's a lot of new technology that will be features built for those specific companies.
Yep.
We're going to see more roll-ups
Okay.
in the HCM landscape.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about assessing tools, you already mentioned it. Candidates right now do not have a fully agentic operational tool at their fingertips.
Yeah.
There are a variety of tools they use,
Yep.
but this is an iPhone 17. My curiosity is, will we have an iPhone 25? Or will we have a completely new consumer hardware technology experience? As the evolution of TA tools continues to move forward with AI, right now, candidate experience, candidate operations
Yeah.
looks much like it did before AI.
Yeah.
So when vendors evolve, it's usually because of a pain point that they can't get the right candidates into an application.
Yeah.
We saw this with things like mobile optimized applicant tracking systems.
Yeah. I remember that.
We saw this with SMS texting
Yes.
for folks that don't have a LinkedIn profile or an
Yeah.
email address.
Yeah.
So until we have a candidate-led agentic AI solution, I think we've kind of jumped the shark on expectations around what great recruiting processes look like.
100%.
And when we assess the tools, I still look at what are the tools that have great reputations,
Yeah.
incredible product organizations,
Yeah.
that ship updates, and that also have
Frequently. Yeah.
and that have interfaces that are familiar to candidates.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around all of that?
So I think from a candidate side, there's a lot of distrust in AI. I think, we're going to start seeing a pool of candidates globally that are quite disgruntled with AI. Maybe it's cost them their previous job. Maybe that's why they're on the market. I mean, how frustrating is it? I mean, have you tried to phone a bank lately or your, cell phone? You just want to talk to a human being. Like, just let me. And I think that we're going to get to that point. I really believe it. I think that recruitment's going to be the same. Like, just let me talk to someone. So for me, the aim of recruitment's always been to be the recruitment partner for life. And you work with that candidate throughout their career and you guide them and you move them on to their next. And then when they start their own company one day, you recruit for them. And I think that that's still the dream because AI is not going to get between you and that relationship with that individual. And I really think that that's super important, is that I do believe that you can scale, but if you don't have the talent to scale, then you can't create people. I know you can get humanoid robots and all of those things, but if the people don't exist, you can have as much AI and automation in the world, you're still not going to be able to create talent. And I think that's where we're going to get to. That's the thinking behind it.
I have chills right now for what you just said, thinking about the relationship for a lifetime of a career.
Yep.
That is such a beautiful sentiment.
Recruiter for life.
When you think about what gets you out of bed to work in this industry, where's your motivation come from?
I've got to the point in my career now where the motivation comes from giving back and adding value. An example, coming here to the States, so many people come up to me at this conference and said, I just want to thank you. Like, your TikTok videos, your YouTube channel, your LinkedIn posts. I've learned so much from you in the past. I've watched all of your webinars and I just have no idea. I sometimes feel like you put these things out and you share and you think, well, I hope maybe 1 or 2 people watch this. And I'm just being honest here. So for me, what gets me up in the morning in this industry is to make it better because we just have such a bad name. I mean, we lumped in with the secondhand car salesman, the real estate agents, like globally, like that's a thing. And I'm not knocking those industries, but I mean, people often have bad experiences with them. And if I can help the industry to be better and do better, and they'll do that on a day, mission accomplished. So yeah, I know that it actually sounds quite Pollyanna-like, but
No.
I'm just at that stage in my career where I want to give back. It's not all about the money. We all need money to survive, but I've reached a happy place in my life where we've got to give back because not everyone's been fortunate enough to have the life experiences that I've had.
I think about some of the people in my career, people our friends, and one conversation at a time. I'm growing relationships. There are real people that if they called me in the middle of the night, I would answer the phone because of this industry, because of this work. I'm so grateful for that. Early recruiting manager told me, one day I was probably in her office complaining about pipeline. and I had been recently promoted from a recruiting coordinator. And she looked me in the eye and she said, "You asked me to be a recruiter, go recruit." That was the day that I just accepted that this is a grind.
Yeah.
It's one phone call after another. I'm a big believer that the next great candidate is one phone call away.
Yeah.
You have to be resilient. You have to be an optimist. I am a perpetual
Yeah.
optimist.
Absolutely.
What do you think are some of those traits of great recruiters today?
Totally agree. Totally agree. You have to have broad shoulders because it's not easy. I mean, this industry isn't for everyone. It really and truly isn't. I think you've got to remember essentials like kindness. You've always got to remember that at the end of the day, it's someone looking for a job. I mean, you're playing with their life, their family's life. In some places in Africa, you're playing with the whole community's life, and that's not something to be taken for granted. But yes, it is a grind. No one said it was going to be easy. But the reason why I love it is I've always been able to influence my paycheck. And for me, that's everything. So if, there's something that I want and, instant gratification, ADHD, I want it now, I'm just going to put in an extra, couple of hours for 3 months and I'm going to really smash the commission and then I'm going to be able to afford whatever I want. And I think that that's really comes down to the individual being able to drive what they want out of life based on how hard they work. And I think that's one of the beauties of this industry that a lot of people kind of forget about.
You have such a strong online presence. I show up every day online as well. I see a lot of conversations around differences between FANG recruiters and startup recruiters, differences between in-house corporate recruiters and external agency recruiters. I want to hear about the similarities. You've been doing this long enough.
Yeah.
What are the things that are common bonds?
It's a really good question. At the end of the day, what is common is the goal. It's about getting someone new, a warm body on a seat into an organization, right? So I think that agency recruiters, if they work on being a trustworthy individual, they have a fantastic brand, they have a network. There's no reason an agency recruiter should have an advantage over or a disadvantage over an internal recruiter. I think it comes down to the individual and how they are embracing the different nuances and the pros and cons of where they are recruiting. But the ones that I see doing well are the ones who are embracing that brand. And it doesn't matter where they work, they're still going to be the most successful.
When this is all said and done, why will have this been worth it for you?
Because I'm hopefully leaving the world a better place. And I think that's the best thing that we could aspire to in life is to every conversation that I have with people, I want to leave them feeling more positive, happier, and in a better position to do their job better the next day.
Vanessa, recruiting has shown me that the world is a lot smaller than we think. Thank you for making the world a smaller place for me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as a guest. I've really enjoyed it.
Here's a look at the next episode of the Recruiting Roadshow, brought to you by Greenhouse. Kelly McCann is an employer brand leader who's worked within the Fortune 5. In this conversation, I learned so much about the amazing work Kelly has done, and I think you'll really appreciate how we think about rec ops, including employer brand. Why do you think teams need to double down on employer brand now more than ever?
I think we're in a market where our customers are our candidates. When we think about how candidate search behavior is changing and leaning towards sources of AI to get all of this data, that's what's influencing their perception of your brand. Your reputation is out there whether you like it or not.
Recruiters are storytellers. I think in the future and where we're headed is we're going to see more and more recruiting operations teams working hand in hand with the employer brand team.
Life is long, business is forever. We have to remember we're in the business of people-to-people interactions. Like all of these relationships can continue if we treat people like humans.